In Vajrayana, translated as Diamond Way or Adamantine Vehicle Buddhism, the Lama is often said to be more important than the Buddha himself, because the Lama is the student's living connection to Buddhist methods, teachings, and experience. The Lama is the one who introduces the student to the practices, who teaches the concepts, and who destroys the concepts. So, what is a Lama? How important is the Lama in the different traditions of Buddhism? What are the qualifications of an authentic Lama? And finally, if one has found a Lama that one can trust, how should one approach this all-important relationship? This videography will aim to address these questions and to present the idea that the Lama is a very large help in one's development. First, we must ask ourselves, what is a Lama and what does he do? Let's look at what makes a Lama and what is a Lama. Our videographer practices Buddhism within the Karma-Kagyu lineage, where the Lama is of utmost importance. In the Karma-Kagyu lineage, there has been an unbroken, direct transmission of the special methods used for development directly from teacher to student for many generations. This relates to our discussion of the Lama because, in this case, the Lama is the teacher. The term Lama translates into English as something like highest principle or upper one, depending on the source, but in a practical sense one can understand the Lama as simply a Buddhist teacher. In the Karma-Kagyu lineage, the student, upon realizing the teachings that the Lama has given, in turn becomes a Lama himself and is able to pass these teachings on to future students. Is the Lama more important in some forms of Buddhism than others? The answer to this question is certainly yes. In the Theravada tradition, the most important impetus for a student's growth comes from the words of the historical Buddha Shakyamuni and the elders of the tradition that lived directly after him. For this reason, the teacher, while being an important guide in showing the student the teachings, is not ultimately essential. In the Mahayana, the teacher is of greater importance, as the Lama is able to use creative, skillful means to help the student better understand the union of compassion and emptiness, which constitutes full enlightenment. However, it is in the Vajrayana that we see the full importance of the teacher, for in the Vajrayana the teacher is the direct link to the special methods of transformation that, as it is said, allow a student to reach enlightenment in one lifetime. Without the teacher, there is no means to use these methods. Our videographer practices in this tradition and will be the first to admit that, while he doesn't understand this relationship fully, he understands it well enough to say with confidence that this relationship is the most important one in a Vajrayana practice. Now, we have talked about how great a Lama is and how much a Lama can help us develop in our Buddhist practice, but we still need to examine the qualifications of a Lama. In our modern academic world, it is hard enough to find a good calculus teacher in a university, so one can easily imagine that it is a very difficult undertaking to find a qualified Buddhist teacher. In this, it is useful to consider Buddhism from a scholar viewpoint and a meditation viewpoint. On the scholar side of things, it is no small undertaking to become proficient in the philosophical points of Buddhism. In order to become what is called a Kenpo in the Kagyu, Nyingma, or Sakya schools, or a Geshe in the Gelugpa tradition, one normally spends from 12 to 17 years of study in a Shedra, or institution of higher education of Buddhism. During this time, one studies things like the various philosophical traditions of Buddhism, such as the Madhyamaka view, which is considered in Tibetan Buddhism to be the highest view, the different baskets of Buddhism such as the Abhidharma and the Vinaya, and many other courses of study and examination. Through this study it is possible to reach a level of understanding in which the meaning of every theoretical point is clarified. This person can then legitimately teach the theory of Buddhism. However, study is not the only aspect of Buddhism. Meditation is another aspect, and a teacher of meditation must have meditation experience. Scholarly achievement is not enough. Shamar Rinpoche, a High Lama in the Karma-Kagyu tradition, has said that a blend of meditation expertise and intellectual mastery would seem to be ideal, if not for the huge time constraints involved in becoming competent in either one. As mentioned earlier, intellectual achievement takes well over a decade to master, and meditation experience can take just as long to develop. So here it is important to be aware of what one wants. If one wants to have a philosophical understanding of Buddhism, then a learned scholar is essential. If one wants to directly understand how one's mind works, a meditation master is needed. In this case, meditation experience is the only true prerequisite, not whether one has the title of Geshe or Kenpo. Shamar Rinpoche's advice to students is that aspiring students of Buddhism today develop a firm basis in a theoretical understanding of Buddhism, and then continue on by placing as much emphasis on actual meditation as possible under the guidance of a competent meditation guide. Finally, let's examine what to do if one does in fact want to start a relationship with a Buddhist Lama. In this case, our videographer has spent some time examining this subject, and has some advice to give, based on experience and the advice of his first real connection to Buddhism and its methods, Lama Ole Nudal. First, one should be as honest and mature as possible, and one should make sure that the Lama is solid and trustworthy the whole way through. One should be aware of weaknesses, as they will surface later, and one should be patient. Traditionally, a student and teacher would test each other over a period of years before formally becoming a pair. Today, this is often not done to the same extent, but as there are many people who claim to be great teachers and few who truly are, it is wise to keep one's feet on the ground while one checks out the teacher. It has been our videographer's goal in this project to introduce the idea that the Lama can be a very important help in our development, and hopefully this has been generally clear. Finally, on the same line of thought, our videographer would like to make a wish that all of the beneficial relationships that we all have may become stronger as we develop in our lives.